Welcome this week, Stephen Stamp Lax, Stamper, Inside Lacrosse editor and contributor. Another exciting week, and you were live in Montreal. Is that correct?
I was, yeah. I was up in Laval at Place Belle for the Toronto at New York game, and it was electric. It was a great atmosphere, great vibe in the building, really solid crowd. They closed off the upper bowl of the building, but the lower bowl was pretty full, and the suites were packed, and everyone was excited. They booed New York or Toronto when they came out because Montreal and Toronto hate each other. They cheered for New York, but then later in the game when Toronto got rolling, they really kind of came around and helped and cheered for Toronto, cheered kind of for whoever was doing well or whatever was happening that was fun, and then gave everybody a standing ovation after the final buzzer. It was a blast, and people there were stoked. The league is stoked. The Montreal Canadiens and the Molson family are stoked, which is very, very important. There's going to be a team, I believe, in Laval sooner rather than later. I don't know if it's too late this year to do it for the fall, if it's going to be expansion. I don't know if somebody's going to move there, but I think there'll be a team in Laval soon, and I don't think it'll be too long before an announcement. I tend to just cheer for plays. I mean, obviously, always like if somebody gets hurt and they get up, you applaud. Anthem and things. It was a great anthem, actually, two great anthems at that rink. But get excited for good lacrosse and for a good game. It's so much fun. There was so much fun happening this weekend.
Yeah, no, it was a great weekend. I can't wait. I have not watched the entire game yet. I was flipping back and forth. I was very torn. We'll start with Toronto and New York, and you picked out a couple of big plays. We've been talking a lot about the Riptide defense.
Yeah, I mean, and the New York defense has been so good. It's been such an improvement. I remembered these plays and I said, hey, let's get these plays. And then you go through to see exactly where they are. I'd forgotten they were back to back goals by Toronto that actually took the score from 7-5 to 7-7, and absolutely critical mistakes by the New York Riptide. And you can see on the first one that Brent Noseworthy, who I think has had some very good moments, but has also had some issues. I'm really high on Noseworthy as a prospect. And I mean, he hasn't been a runner that long. He did play goalie up through most of his minor and became a runner later in his lacrosse career, and then didn't play a ton of box when he was at college. So, he's still developing, but this is just one where he comes out to check Dan Craig. And we talked about it last week and kind of wanted to go over it again here, that you've got to cross check people. And you watch Noseworthy come out. Craig makes a bit of a fake, and Noseworthy's stick is completely vertical. Just, you cannot let yourself get narrow when somebody is agile, as quick, and as dynamic as Daniel Craig is coming at you, and you've got no help. You can see that it's a pretty nice switch by Noseworthy to get over onto Craig, but then he just lets him go straight underneath, untouched, takes a swing at the stick, and then he's chasing him, and that's a bit of a problem that we saw for New York far too often throughout the game. And it's a theme in this particular series of events, because the next goal is, in this case, the captain, Damon Edwards. Again, I mean, this guy's had a terrific career. He's a great leader for this team. But this play, it's astonishing that, I mean, you can pause it at one point and you see there's nobody close. The closest player for New York actually is Noseworthy on another Toronto defender behind Edwards. But Matthews is right over along the boards. Edwards is watching him, and then just kind of looks around and has his weight kind of back on his heels and is looking side to side. But there's no real help. Noseworthy can't just abandon his check. So Edwards has Matthews. You can't let him just take off underneath, because there's no help. There's nothing going to stop one of the best scorers in the history of the league. And you watch it play out, and it's beautiful for Toronto, but my goodness, Edwards gets nowhere near Mark Matthews, and you just can't do that.
No, that's a recipe for disaster. You talk about the just them planting their feet for that second, and really the speed change from both of those guys completely takes them off guard, and they're in terrible position. Yeah, when you watch that replay with that view looking out towards the defenders, you really realize there is nobody from New York that can get there at this point.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, they'll get that corrected. That hasn't happened to them a ton this year. Again, New York gave up 8 goals to San Diego a week ago. They have been playing some great defense. Cameron Dunkerley's been doing a really good job, but he or most goalies in the world are not stopping Dan Craig and Mark Matthews very often when they come in on basically a breakaway from the wing.
And then we kind of move right into the exact opposite, more of the way you're supposed to put your body in position. and cross check somebody.
Yeah, and we talked about it last week. We talked about Pat Coyle saying that's what you need to do, and that's what defenders don't necessarily do that much these days. And this first play is just Colton Watkinson, captain of the Firewolves, who have had their struggles defensively, right? I mean, they've had some really good performances this year, but then they lost a couple of games where they had some defensive breakdowns. But this first play is just Dylan Kinnear coming in. It's not a huge deal, but you can see that Watkinson just cross checks him, and Kinnear is either trying to shoot or pass. It looks like he's trying to pass it down to Eli McLaughlin, and it goes awry because Colton Watkinson doesn't go for the stick fake, doesn't try to swing his stick around. He just gets a nice solid cross check on the body of Kinnear coming in, and that forces the errant pass. And that people think, it's natural to think and kind of you get it in your head, hey, it's I've got to get on his stick. And Watkinson actually does get the stick because Kinnear has it up kind of in front of his face, in front of his chest, and Watkinson cross checks to the chest. But get to the body, and it will throw someone's shooting off. Because if you lift your hands up to shoot, as you need to do, hands up, you get hit in the arm, you get hit in the stomach, you get hit in the hand, whatever. It's going to make it difficult to throw the pass where you want.
Yeah, no, that's a huge thing, especially at a crucial time. They're at this point, Colorado's trailing by 1 goal, and you're looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
I know I was sitting there, and I was expecting Colorado to get another goal at some point.
Yeah, well, that was the way that game was going, right? Because it was so close, and Colorado kept coming back and couldn't, Albany couldn't really pull ahead. It was a great game. It was a lot of fun to watch. I kind of felt like, okay, Albany's getting their stuff together. They're probably gonna win this game, but at the same time, Colorado the last 2 years has been about a 500 team. Back-to-back seasons they go 10-8, they go 9-9. In the first one, they win a championship. The second one, they make it to the finals. You know who else was a 500 team? Was the Rochester Nighthawks in 2012 to 14. Well, at least 2012 and 13. They were either 500 or a game below, but made the playoffs, won back-to-back championships. And then they actually went 12-4 or 14-2 in 2014. They were really good start to finish. Matt Vince was great. The whole team was great. And they won their third championship. So could Colorado turn it around and get back in? It's going to be really hard sitting at 3-7, but you never count them out. But in this one, just fantastic. And you got this other clip, and this is just another really good example of, again, Colton Watkinson is involved here, as is another Albany defender. You see Jackson Nishimura come down, and then a third gets in. But those two are the key ones. Is Connor Kelly comes in with the ball, and they just cross-check up, really tighten up, close things out, take the ball away, and head up the other way in the floor. And that's what the score tied, right? And that's what you're saying. Like, it looked like you thought Colorado was going to score. Well, they're coming down trying to do so with under 6 minutes to play. And solid, consistent defense was critical.
That was a huge part of the game. Dougie was really no, and actually though, I mean Jameson, his style of playing on the crease line like that, it lends him to a couple of those outside shots going in, which is why Albany, put so much pressure on and all that. But then when you see him make some of those saves from in close, you're like, yeah, I don't know if Dylan Ward would be able to get back, far enough on the. It's just really interesting to see. We're going to talk about it tonight, me and Paul, and actually I've got a couple of highlights clipped out of the goalie difference just from that sitting on the goal line style versus Dylan Ward coming out, and how Simmons really found he liked shooting between his feet. He figured out kind of how he was stepping, and a couple of great shots by Simmons. At the way Albany designed their offense, I was watching, they were setting picks for him to come around that top, and Grennan, it's a perfect match for him because he just pisses everybody off, and he goes over and gets in front of Simmons, and I like it. It allows him to come around the top.
Yeah, Grennan does a lot of work. And there are times Grennan goes over the line and does things that you're just kind of shaking your head at, but that's the price you pay for a guy being so gritty and getting under the skin. Sometimes it's going to go too far. Sometimes, you're going to lose your head a little bit. You're going to do something, and that you're willing to put up with that for sure. Simmons, I think, there's ebbs and flows, right? Scoring underneath, people try and take it away. He goes over the top. He's good enough to do it. He was scoring some outside shots early in the season as well, right? And making passes. I mean, he's scored in all kinds of ways all season. So he's been great. And of course, what a goal by Marshall Powless that winds up being the winner. He goes in, the one-hander, fights through traffic. And he is such a big part of the offense. Doesn't get a lot of attention, but I think, if I was Saskatchewan right now, I'd be thinking, boy, it'd be kind of nice to have him back after trading him away, and their offense could really use him because he facilitates so much. and he'll score some big goals like this one. He is ridiculously talented, but he also just does a lot of things that go a little bit unnoticed when Simmons and Kurtz and Walker are getting most of the attention, and deservedly so. They deserve a lot of attention, but he's an important part of that offense. We're going to go on now to the Halifax game in Calgary on Sunday night, and this is interesting because, of course, there's a new wrinkle to penalties this year, or to serving penalties, which is if they're offsetting or coincidental penalties. Each team takes a minor at the same time. They play 4-on-4. In the past, the NLL had gone 5-on-5, and I always advocated, let's go 4-on-4. And they do it this year. Not that they listen to me. That made it sound a bit more causal than correlative. It's not because I've been saying, hey, let's go 4-on-4. They thought about it and decided it was a good thing to do. So we go 4-on-4, and here is a wrinkle that Halifax brings to it. Very smart. They pull Warren Hill. They get the extra attacker out there to go 5-on-4. And then as you see this play develop, and I love the job you do putting the arrows in here, Austin Shanks makes the pass to the player coming off the bench, Ryan Benesh. And Shanks makes that pass as he's coming up. He is then going to just run to the bench, because if they don't score, he needs to get to the bench so that Hill can get back out. You don't want to give up the goal here with your goalie just sprinting back to the bench because you've taken this chance foolhardily. What you do is you bring the guy extra off the bench. That changes what the defense has to cover. Who are they covering? Shanks is, you don't know that Shanks is going there for sure until he's taken off. He gets the ball to Benesh. Benesh makes the pass through the middle, and you can see how open. This is great when you have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 showing all the players, and you can just see how open Cody Jamieson is with players drawing the defenders, the low defenders out, and Cody Jamieson steps towards where Cornwall is, steps back, is wide open. And I mean, this is akin to the Craig and Matthews being all alone on Cameron Dunkerley. You are not going to stop Cody Jamieson very often when he's in all alone, and they don't hear.
Yeah, no, that was huge because it actually did you notice the score graphic was messed up? So when you're watching
Yeah.
the game, it said power play, and what's even funnier is this next clip we're getting ready to talk about. I had just been messing with Owen about it. Basically, I was like, "What's going on with your boy Courier?" So
So
yes,
it's interesting. A few years ago, during the summer, I was talking to Zach Courier at a game after a game in Brooklyn when the Lakers went up and played. They were the Redmen at the time. I think it was before they changed to Brooklyn Lacrosse Club, and he'd been struggling to score. He is so fast and so talented. He gets a ton of breakaways. He'd been struggling to score, and he scored a goal that night. And I talked to him after, and he said, "You could see the relief when you scored. What did that feel like? What was going on with you having some trouble this summer?" And he said, I think it helped that there was somebody right on my tail that I didn't have time to get in my head and think, because he's such a competitive athlete. He wants to perform very well, but he gets, felt he was getting in his head. In that case, he had to go down and rely a bit more on instinct, and it worked out. Earlier in the game here, in this Halifax Calgary game, Courier, who doesn't have a goal on the season coming into this. He's scored 25 goals total over the last 2 years. He hadn't scored through 8 games. He's used to scoring. He wants to help the team win, and he knows that scoring does that. So he takes off. He gets not a breakaway. He's running down in transition with a defender on him. Gets really tight on the crease, kind of a bad angle. Not a great shot. He shoots anyway, which is very unusual for him to shoot when he's not really in a good scoring position. He's so smart. He usually just pulls it. He's a team guy. He's not looking for the goals for him. He's looking for the goals to help. So he'd peel out, give it off. But he forced a shot. I think it's because he knows he hasn't scored all season, and it's bugging him. He wants to be a contributor. He wants to help, especially because the whole team's transition game was struggling a bit for Calgary. They got going last week, obviously, with 5 transition goals against Toronto. He wanted to contribute to that. He made, I think, probably a poor decision. He doesn't make that many of them. But this next one, we watched this play, and he gets the outlet pass from Christian Del Bianco, and he's got Tyler Pace coming in off the bench. He's got Harrison Matsuoka as a trailer, and he, as he runs, looks at both of them, kind of has a peek and stays off to the side. That forces the defender to respect those possible passes. And you can see as he comes down, nice over the shoulder catch, drifting backwards. I love the shot from behind the Halifax bench, because you see Courier moving still down the floor, but backpedaling away a bit so that he keeps space from the defender, and the defender has to make a decision. There's no decision for the defender to make that's going to be a good one here because it's basically a 3-on-1. And Courier just winds up and rips it. But then you let it roll, and what you see is Courier reaches up behind himself and pulls the imaginary monkey off his back. And then Matsuoka gets there and Pace gets there. Matsuoka just jumps up, lands on it. You can see the smiles. You can see the relief on Zach Courier. The close-up there as he pulls the monkey off is great. They are so jubilant because they know the pressure he's been putting on himself. And then you see the shot on the bench where he's just breathing. And it's beautiful because he's just catching his breath. He's like, whew, that's over. I'm back. Let's go. And you look at his numbers for the game, and he had a fantastic game. I mean, he was absolutely lights out overall. He may have been the best player in the game. I mean, there were some great performances, but he was just outstanding. And his totals, goal, he had 13 loose balls, he had 4 caused turnovers, and that's a very Zach Courier game.
That's a good game by pretty much anybody's standards. And was that the last goal on Warren Hill? Was that when they pulled him, I think?
They went back and forth. So I'm trying to remember if that's when they pulled him, and then because they went to their backup Drew Hutchison for a while, who was great last week, and then came in and didn't do very well this week. Was not an epic performance for him. So still, it's kind of good for the U.S. that he is getting. We've talked about national teams, and Drew Hutchison seems like the most likely starter for the U.S. at the Worlds this year. Played very well for them at the Laxnai tournament, and he. I think will be probably the guy, and it's good for them if he's getting time. He plays in the summer anyway, so he'll get time. But that was quite a game and not a great performance. You look at between Hutchison and Hill, their save percentage was around 670, which is not. I mean, 770 is not great. 670 that's bad. It's just a bad game goaltending wise. Now, again, they face some pretty high quality chances, but you need more out of your goalies than they got in that particular one. We're going to have a final section here, and we're going to the Arena Lacrosse League again. And we've highlighted a few of these players. Aaron Woods, we're just talking Halifax. Aaron Woods has been great. Multiple goals in his first 4 games. There's only like 5 players who have ever done that in the NLL. Score 2 or more goals in each of their first 4 games. What a start. We saw he could play in the Arena Lacrosse League. He played for the Peterborough Timbermen, who feature in this first clip we're going to take a look at as they were playing the Oshawa Outlaws. And
John St. John with it.
He's number 7 for Oshawa in white. This is at the Millbrook Community Center. And he, on the weekend, scored his 500th point in the Arena Lacrosse League. He's been with the Outlaws since the league was formed in 2017. He's never really gotten a shot in the NLL, and it's a shame. I mean, he's a good player, obviously, 500 points in the ALL. He's a very good player, very talented, hard worker, strong. For a while, he really wanted to get to the NLL and just didn't get the opportunity, or when he did get a shot here and there, it wasn't much of a shot. He didn't get to stick around. Now he's actually quite happy playing with Oshawa. He's got a beautiful wife and family. His children are very important to him, and he's got a really good job. And it works better for him now to be in the ALL. And he'll be 30 this year. He's pretty content with doing this. But this just shows you what a good player he really is. And this one's going to be a goal that we see for his 500th point. And he just takes a return pass here and drags the ball down a little bit, cuts through, gets a nice pick down low from his teammate, and comes through into this empty space, and just a beautiful shot to put it far side. And that is point number 500 in the career of John St. John. So congratulations to him. And we have a special little treat. And this was actually pretty fun for me to go back because I was calling the game, the triple header, the
John St. John with it.
League launched. It came after the Canadian Lacrosse League, or CLAX, and the Arena Lacrosse League was the new venture by Paul St. John, who was the founding commissioner, along with Jim Veltman of CLAX. He founded the Arena Lacrosse League. Triple header day to start things off at the Tribute Community Center in Oshawa. It used to be the GM Center. Anyway, it's the third day of the game was the Oshawa Outlaws, this time wearing their blue, facing the Six Nations Snipers in their white.
They're back to even strength. The stick gets up into his grill. He fights through it, scores. What a beautiful goal by John St. John. One stick did initially get up, kind of through his face. He takes another shot, just bounces off and finds the top corner. Just leaves the stick behind. Doesn't matter. The ball went in first.
This is fun. This is John St. John's first point of 500 plus in the Arena Lacrosse League. He comes in, they're actually shorthanded when he gets the ball, but by the time he scores, they are back even strength. But watch him bull his way through the physical presence. He works very hard on his strength. He drives through here, takes a pretty high check and battles through, somehow hangs on to the ball while his stick is getting smashed around, comes out the other side with nobody between him and Warren Hill that we actually just saw in the last game. And he gets this goal, and it's a beauty, his first ever. And that was, it's pretty fun. I enjoyed going back 7 years to that January 2017 game and seeing Warren Hill facing off against Zach Higgins between the pipes. There are a handful of players who were on that team yesterday, or on the weekend, on Saturday, with John St. John, who were also on the team with him back in 2017. Pretty amazing, if you ask me. They had Cheeto Andrioli, Zach Tompkinson, Graham Bergsma, all on the team, both for John St. John's first point and his 500. They weren't all there the whole way through, but they were both at both ends of it. And Ryan McMichael was playing for the Outlaws in that first game 7 years ago. He actually did color commentary with me for the first game of that day, then went and took a break during the second game, came and played the third game, and actually scored the overtime championship winning goal in the final for Oshawa at the end of the year. So lots of connections there. Some other guys who were in that game, Nick Tchaikovsky, who's with Albany, Mike Triolo, now in Saskatchewan. Triolo actually scored the overtime goal that put Oshawa into the finals that year. He scored in the semifinal. And in Six Nations, mentioned Warren Hill and Travis Longboat, who is now in his first really full season in the NLL, playing with Albany and having a great year. So it was a really fun one to see, and congrats once again to John St. John, who's had a pretty terrific career.
Yeah, that's impressive. I love watching those. But no, Tchaikovsky, like you're talking about, Longboat, those two additions for Albany have been huge. I mean, that Tchaikovsky, he had a good game, not his best game, but Longboat still looked great. I mean, yeah, he didn't have the goals,
Yeah.
but man, there's so much to that offense that gets, Ethan Walker and everybody else scoring their goals that everybody doesn't see. And for how small, it's amazing how small they were compared to Colorado. Not every team. Colorado's huge. Like their whole team, their defense especially, they are all huge.
Yeah. Not wearing a jersey this week. I decided to switch things up a little bit. Got a t-shirt here. Love the logo. This was actually made by the Haudenosaunee team for the U16, U18 Worlds a couple of years ago when they were held in Buffalo, and Dan did some announcing, and really fun tournament. You see a lot of up-and-coming talent.
Thanks so much for joining us as always. I really appreciate you taking the time. And if people want to find you, the best place to find you is?
Go to IL Indoor, InsideLacrosse.com, the IL Indoor site, and check out all the stories. And you can check me at Stamplax on Twitter/X. It still says Twitter.com. I'm going to keep calling it Twitter. And Instagram, I'm at Stamplax1234 or something. I didn't know what I was doing when I started the account. You can't really change it that easily, I don't think. I'm not a techie guy, so I stick with that. Instagram, just find me there. It's there's lots of stuff to go and find it. And hit me up if you want to send a message. I'm always happy to hear from the fans and have conversations.
Awesome, everybody. Links in the description for everything he said. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you guys next week.